Um, so I did turn on live. I don't know how this is going to go, but we'll see. So people might join us, maybe not. I got to figure out if somebody joined us. Hi. So this is on my private page. I'll have to make it global later. This is beautiful. I can watch my bangs just fly all over. So I'm stalling now. We got one person watching us. It's a little experiment of ours. So we just read our text from Matthew 18. Jesus talking to the disciples in the parable of the unforgiving servant. So our little homily today before we have our discussion, and I'll stop live for our discussion so that we can speak freely, but our homily today is the further adventures of power and presence in the Gospel of Matthew. So those who've been in conversation with me lately know that I'm on a journey exploring some of our sister faith traditions within Christianity. Just a couple of weeks ago, we contrasted the Roman Church's gospel of power with the Celtic Church's gospel of presence. I've long been steeped in the Roman side of our faith, even though I've never been Roman Catholic myself. The Roman gospel of power is influential. It's more than just being a Roman Catholic, of course. It takes shape in perhaps the majority of Christian faith tribes, from Catholics to Calvinists. Anywhere you see reinforced hierarchies and strong dogmatics with creeds and institutionalized rules of what you can and can't believe, and where rigid boundaries of who is in and who is out are cemented in place, that's likely the gospel of power. Wherever you've heard the word heretic exclaimed, that's likely the gospel of power. If you have experience in that tradition, and you very likely are steeped in it, then you probably have encountered today's gospel text being used to support that kind of gospel, the gospel of power. There's a lot going on in today's text. You've got the description of a 3-step plan for dealing with sin in the church. You've got a repeat of the church's claim to authority for binding and unbinding on earth and in heaven. You've got this vending machine promise to grant anything that 2 or more of you agree in prayer. You've got this seemingly unachievable command to eternally forgive without limits, which I will warn is a favorite passage for abusers to gaslight victims. And then you have this parable of the unforgiving servant that most everyone likes to pretend isn't there in Scripture, unless you're a pastor out for blood. I've done that. There's a lot in this text to talk about today. And I'm not going to speak for you, but I have long viewed all of this text through the neat and tidy lens of the gospel of power, through imperial Christendom, through patriarchy and this Augustinian obsession with human depravity and the enforcement of law and order that it embraces. I'm going to be really honest with you, though, and confess that I can no longer see these passages through that same lens of Roman power. I guess it's my curse in life to be constantly pulling back the curtain to see what's behind it. I say curse, but it's really an adventure in deconstruction and truth-seeking. So today I have some questions. One might be, how do I read and stay in the frame at the same time? No, seriously, I have some questions of the text today. So I invite you along with me on that journey of questions. This is the second time our text uses the word church, where the original Greek says ecclesia. The church, as we know it, would have been an anachronism. That is, it didn't exist as we know it when Jesus said these words to his disciples. So exactly what did Jesus mean when he said ecclesia? And just who are you supposed to drag these sinners in front of before you treat them like Gentiles and tax collectors? Who? And why do we assume that that means to shun them? Treating them like Gentiles and tax collectors. Don't we have examples of Jesus treating Gentiles and tax collectors certain ways? He had dinner with them. He had them as disciples. He talked with them when others ignored them. Think about that. What does it mean for the great 3-step plan for dealing with sinners in the church if Jesus immediately talks about infinite forgiveness? Would we ever get to the place where we're dragging our favorite arch nemesis before the whole church for the sake of exiling them if we embodied that kind of forgiveness? What about this prayer thing? I really want to pray that my diabetes is healed and that my family has a proper house and that this faith community brings in 100 new people next week. I bet I could get at least one other person to agree with me in all of that in sincere prayer. Anyone? See? I bet I could get at least one other person, let alone 20. I mean, all of those are pretty easily positive and good requests. So why do we all know that those things likely are not going to happen even if we all agree in prayer on them? Does that mean that we're interpreting the passage through an unclear and selfish lens? Who is it that gets to forbid things on earth and have them forbidden in heaven? What do they get to forbid? Is it a singular few? Or is it y'all? Or even all y'all? Is that implied there? And who are they? I see a lot of different people claiming to be the chosen one or the predestined elect who get to bind and forbid with abandon. Honestly, they seem to be pretty bound up people if you ask me. But seriously, one group claims to forbid some people as abominations, while another group permits them as beautifully beloved. Who really has that authority? Is it even about authority? What if we answered these questions and interpreted these passages not through the lens of Roman imperial power gospel, but through a more Celtic gospel lens of God's presence? What if this isn't about granting power to some predestined elect of us, but rather it's an expression of presence with all of us? What would be the good news of that gospel? Maybe we'd grant space for one another. Maybe there'd be forgiveness, peace, and shalom. Maybe there'd be amazing grace. Those are my questions of the text today. And now, as it is our practice, I'm going to stop talking for a minute and we're going to start discussing. So, goodbye to all of our one persons who joined us today in this Facebook Live experiment. I'm going to turn this off so our people